Hello. Hope you're all doing well. Can everyone hear me? If you can hear me, please mention in the chat and I will get PowerPoint up properly. There we go. Oh, it's been a big week. Thursday webinar. Please pop in the chat if you can hear me. We're expecting quite a lot of people today, so I'm very excited about that. And I've promised you that it's going to take half an hour. It's a big topic. We're covering every state and territory in Australia. Thank you all for saying that you can hear me. That's great news. And thanks for using the chat too. Feel free to use the chat. If you also use the Q&A, I might not see it. I'm here on my own. I'm fairly proficient at this, but just to make sure that I get to all your questions at the end, let's use one channel. Welcome, everyone. I'm covering what seems to be a very popular discussion topic in our industry at the moment. Can you see the wording on this first slide? It says the payroll tax landscape. Oh, no, I'm sharing the wrong screen, I think. Okay, yes, I am sharing the wrong screen. Love it. Yes. Oh no. Okay. I don't want to stuff this up. All right. I already have stuffed it up. Okay. Tech dramas are always fun. Oh, here we go. All right. Now, this is the right slide. Share it. Yes, here we go. Look at that, an animation. That was not what I expected. So we're going to talk about the payroll tax landscape in mid-2025, and I mostly work with medical and health professionals, which this has been a very, very big topic over the last few years. And so what does it mean for you now? How is it evolving? And really critical for you to understand at the moment. Funnily enough, I always start my webinars with a disclaimer. I just want you to know that this is for general guidance only. I'm not going to be answering anyone's legal issues because that would be irresponsible for me to do so on a webinar like this. We need to understand the full context of how you work to be able to give proper advice. So keep that in mind when you're asking questions towards the end. I'll help and guide as much as I can. But if you do need to be booked in with me for a call or one of my other senior lawyers to have a quick chat for more information, I'll give you that opportunity as well. All right, let's get started. Who am I? If I haven't met you before, it's very nice to meet you. My name's Sarah Bartholomeusz. I've been a lawyer for, wait for it, 22 years coming up on the 1st of September, which is Monday. So that's a fun milestone to think about on our webinar today. And I've run my practice, ULegal, for 12 years and specialised in medical and health professionals because I come from a family of doctors and allied health professionals, allied including dentists, nurses, a GP, doctor, of course, and physio. So very health focused family. I guess I'm a bit of the black sheep as the lawyer, but always enjoy in my practice protecting medical practices. That's really our main gambit here. We tend not to get involved in that dispute side. We really prefer to set your business up for success. As I started out as a litigator, I can see how much damage disputes do to practices, so I want them to be protected as much as is reasonably possible, so that disputes don't occur, or if they do occur, there is a way to deal with them. I've written this book. This was my third book, Growing a Medical Practice from Frustration to a High Performance Business. And it's a guidebook for medical practice owners or medical practice managers who want help with legally protecting their practice and a guide for how to do that, the sort of issues you need to think about. I wrote it before all of this payroll tax thing started. So there's nothing about that in there yet. Maybe our third version will do that. But in the meantime, look, let's get started. Got 25 minutes to go. By the end of the session, my goal is for you to have more clarity than you do now. You are going to know the latest developments, how rulings affect different structures and different states and territories, the risk areas that you should be focusing on as an owner or practice manager, and I'll share some insights from working with medical and health practices across the country on these issues. Now, why does this matter? Payroll tax is really become a very pressing compliance issue for medical and allied health practices. Each state revenue office is looking closely at how practitioners are engaged, and their interpretations are not always aligned. They can be different state to state, different territory to state. And in fact, some of you in the questions that you asked when you registered were asking questions about this and why some state revenue officers are using examples from other states that actually have completely different rulings in place. So my answer to that is, I'm not really sure why they're doing that. And different states, it's not as clear as to how they're going to be dealing with these issues. So we can talk about that as we move on as well. We're going to break down the latest updates, risks, and practical steps to really help you stay ahead. So here's the 2024-2025 update, really. Over the past 12 to 18 months, we've seen significant changes in this space, with revenue officers releasing new rulings, guidance notes, and even pursuing high-profile audits. I talk to a lot of accountants, and they're seeing in different states a real increase in the number of audits on medical practices in particular. And what's especially challenging is that the same structures might be treated differently in New South Wales versus Queensland, for example. So keeping track of the state-based approaches is really more important than ever, particularly if you've got a practice that works across different states or territories. The core issue is really, are payments to doctors and health practitioners considered wages for payroll tax purposes? So we see different arrangements in place, a tenancy or service fee arrangement versus more employment-like arrangements. And we've done a number of webinars about the difference between employment and contractor arrangements and tenant arrangements, and what the different factors or distinctions are that need to be taken into account to help you work out exactly how you're running your business and if you want to make any changes to that based on the risk factors. So factors that might be considered when considering if a person you're engaging is an employee at law, is control and direction, the flow of patient funds, and contractual terms versus the actual practice, what you actually do in your business. So the heart of the payroll tax issues really is, are these payments considered wages? And if so, they might attract payroll tax. The determination of this often hinges on whether the practitioner is genuinely independent, how patient fees are managed, and whether the contractual arrangements reflect reality on the ground. Oh, what can you see? Oh, sorry. Thank you, Nick. I'm going to move. I think got a new screen, and I'm just going to leave this, close this. I wonder if this is what needs to be done. All right, now, can you see it now, Nick? Emma, tell me, no, not yet. Okay, I'm going to put it on this screen now. Why is it fake working for me? I think this is my new screen issue. Okay, I think it's this one. What is it? Oh, it's showing up on a different screen. I think it's doing like a 3-screen thing. I will send you these slides in a PowerPoint version. It's my kids' school stuff. Maybe just to avoid a data breach, I'll do this. I got a new screen, which is amazing. I absolutely love it, but it is not helping us today. All right. Go. Screen 2. Okay. How's that? Are we on? Can I move this? Is it moving? Yes. Okay. Amazing. Sorry about that. This has never happened on one of my webinars before. I feel like I'm not panicking, and that's a good thing. All right. So I'll keep moving. Thank goodness. Great. Okay. Why this matters, I don't think I'm quite at that point. This is what I've been working through. This is the list by the end of the session. This is why it's important and matters to you. This is why it's different in different states and territories over the last 12 to 18 months. And then this is the core issue. So this is what I was talking about. Really do I guess where I was at, the summary is what it often hinges on, and this is in each state and territory, is whether the practitioner is genuinely independent, how patient fees are managed, and whether the contractual arrangements reflect reality on the ground. There's different models that exist, as we know, and they're under scrutiny. So we do have a few models that different practices use. I've tried to summarize the most popular ones here. So service entities where the clinic is providing a service to the practitioners. The clinic might collect the patient fees and then remit to practitioners less a service fee. There's a contractor model where practitioners bill clients, patients directly. And then there can be a hybrid model that is a blend of both. And there can also be a rental arrangement, which is under the service entity model, where the practice is sort of treats itself more like a serviced office that provides some services and rooms to doctors to be able to run their own practices from. Each of these can come with its own risk profile, and the state rulings have been particularly focused on service entities and how these arrangements operate in practice. The main red flags that we see include contracts that don't reflect how the practice actually operates, patient fees going through the clinic's bank account, that same bank account that the clinic uses to pay its rent and pay its employees, and that the directors have drawings from for profit purposes. And then unclear distinctions between employee and contractor roles. The law has been evolving very quickly in employment space over the last few years as well. So there's a conflagration of issues really that make this even more complex, this space. So inconsistencies between your financial records, which auditors do look at, and the legal documents you have in place, and then the day-to-day way that you run your practice can also trigger questions from auditors. So here's a list of those risk areas to watch. Here's a helpful quick checklist you can use as a self-assessment tool. Do your contracts reflect reality? And when I say contracts, I really am a very big proponent of written contracts. One of your questions before the webinar was, my owner has handshake arrangements with practitioners. There's a large number of risks in doing that. So we always suggest having it in writing. It protects the practitioner, it protects the practice. So that's my little sermon on having things in writing. You're not going to be surprised about that, I'm sure. But if you do have contracts, and even if it's a handshake contract, you have a contract, the terms just aren't as clear. I did have somebody that I spoke to this week who had handshake contracts, and someone went and one of their practitioners went and set up down the road, and a lot of the patients have moved and they are feeling very aggrieved by that. No written agreement. So we can make assumptions about some breaches, potentially even making a privacy report or a report to APRA, but without the written agreement, it really is, very difficult. All right. Who controls patient bookings is another one, and billings. How are payment to practitioners structured? Are the documents consistent across the board? And finally, have you reviewed these arrangements against the most recent state-based guidance? These are some questions that regulators will ask, so it's best to get ahead of them where you can. I thought it might be helpful to set out these payroll tax thresholds for you, and it's something to note that some states do have multiple rates, and the reasons for that is it depends on the payroll tax threshold. So lower payroll tax thresholds might have a lower tax rate, so that just complicates things further. Victoria's very interested in having more regional employment. So it's got a very, very low rate for regional employers, which is good for regional employers. So that's just for your records. The threshold is there in the middle. Some of those thresholds have changed recently, so it's important to keep on top of those and keep talking to your accountants about them as well. Here's the recent updates. So Queensland seems to be the most simple one, I think. But despite having relatively harmonised legislation with the other states, Queensland's taken a bit of a distinct approach in relation to payroll tax for general practices. So if you're a specialist practice, if you're an allied health practice, this doesn't apply to you. But as of the 1st of December 2024, wages paid by a medical practice to a GP as a contractor or an employee are exempt from payroll tax. This exemption applies to both employers and employees and contracted GPs, as well as general practice registrars. There's no bulk billing thresholds attached to this exemption, unlike in other states. Non-GP allied health professionals and other medical practitioners not in general practice are not included in this exemption. So definitely something for those people to be across. Victoria, on the 3rd of December, again, December 2024 was a big one. There was an exemption introduced for Victoria in relation to bulk billed consultations for GPs, again, GPs only, and that started on the 1st of July, so last month. Victoria's payroll tax threshold has also just been increased from 1 million to 1 million, from 900,000, and that was from the 1st of July as well. South Australia, my own home state, our government legislated an exemption to the Payroll Tax Act, which allows GPs to not pay payroll tax on any payments to doctors in respect of bulk billed services. Now, talking to a lot of practice managers and doctors that I do talk to in my practice, I've found that many practice owners are saying that moving to 100% bulk billed services is just not going to work for their business models. So all of these options, I think the government must have had their best intentions, but unfortunately hasn't really been reflected in the reality of the landscape that medical practices operate in. We'll move on to Northern Territory annual, and I'll get off my soapbox. Northern Territory, the annual payroll tax threshold is now 2.5 million, which is an increase from 1.5 million in the previous financial year. So that's a big change, and it's great. I do sometimes see payroll tax as a tax on growth and success. So it's nice to see the territory increasing it that much. New South Wales, got a few people from New South Wales here today. This update is from the 4th of September 2024. There's a rebate available under the bulk billing support initiative if the practice meets certain bulk billing thresholds, and there's certain regional areas that certain percentages apply to. So Metropolitan Sydney, 80% of GP services need to be bulk billed. Other areas, it's 70%. And the relief does apply to contractor GPs, but doesn't extend, again, to specialists and allied health professionals who really have been a bit left out in the cold on this, on these payroll tax updates, I think, unfortunately. The ACT earlier last month announced that ongoing relief was going to be included in the ACT's most recent budget, with the ACT government confirming an exemption for bulk billed GP services from the 1st of July, so last month. Tasmania has been pretty quiet. There's been some political turmoil happening in Tasmania over the last few years, hasn't there? But they haven't really made any announcements. Both the government and opposition in the lead up to the 2024 election, as opposed to the 2025 election that you've just had, Tassie people, they did pledge that payroll tax wouldn't be imposed on contractor GPs. The sectors are waiting any official updates to follow through on these commitments. So I'm not sure if anybody on the call knows anyone who's been having payroll tax audits from Tasmania, but it'll be interesting to hear about what's happening on the ground there. WA, that's another interesting one where, firstly, there's different payroll tax legislation there, and in particular in relation to contractors, but they have indicated no intent to change existing provisions. Western Australia's payroll tax legislation does differ from other states, particularly in its treatment of contractors. Rather than rigidly applying the relevant contract test, the government assesses payroll tax obligations based on the totality of the relationship between the medical practice and the practitioner. And we've had to work through some of these with clients who have been audited. And it's more of a common law approach, but it does have, they've got quite a very large number of questions that they ask in trying to establish this. And the common law approach really requires medical practices to ensure their service agreements clearly establish a genuine contractor agreement. It's more like the federal approach of contractor versus employee that we talk about a lot. How the ATO considers it is how the WA payroll tax agency deals with it. So what can you do? Your practical steps forward. Well, you can start by reviewing your agreements. If you don't have anything in writing, I really do recommend that. And making sure that those agreements in writing match your practice model. Check how patient payments are flowing. It's a big red flag area. Align your contracts, policies, and financial documents so that they tell the same story. Seek legal advice, especially if you operate across multiple states, and think about future-proofing your arrangements so you don't have to redo them every time that the guidance shifts. Here's a case study from a client that we had come to us recently. A client recently approached us. They are an allied practice. They really were very successful and were engaging a lot of psychologists. So while we were talking to them about their arrangements, they mentioned how they had over 20 contractors with agreements that hadn't been reviewed for quite some times. They hadn't even considered a remote possibility that their arrangements would expose them to payroll tax liability, but they were well over the threshold. Looking at their agreement, it did seem like they were probably meant to be paying payroll tax. And in this case, we provided them with payroll tax advice specific to their agreement, specific to their state, and the guidance that we had from the payroll tax office, the state revenue office. And we were able to give them a real lie of the land to help them understand the true extent of their risk that they'd had and how to guide them with their next steps to make sure that they were protected moving forward. So key takeaways for you: payroll tax is complex and dynamic. It's really a moving target. The biggest risk comes when contractors and day-to-day practices don't align, and interpretations do differ by state. So you do need personalised, tailored advice. And it's such a big area, I think, that having that tailored advice can help you look back on why you made changes in your practice rather than just making a change to your agreement and rolling it out. The most important message I want to give you to take away is proactive steps can save your practice from costly disputes in the future. I mentioned that at the very beginning, that I really don't like to see disputes between parties because I know how much they cost and I know how avoidable they are by having things in writing. They don't need to be bigger than Ben-Hur. My recommendation is to review your legal structures now. If you'd like support at uLegal, we offer payroll tax risk reviews to help practices identify gaps and strengthen their arrangements. And you can also subscribe to our updates to stay across the rulings and the law that's relevant for your practice as they evolve. Please feel free to book a call with me or one of the other senior lawyers in our team. We'll send out links with the recording so that you can share the recording with people if you'd like. And you can book a call with me. There's my booking link. Oh, yes, we have a Facebook group called uLegal for Doctors. You're welcome to join if you're not already in there. This is the link to book a call. I'll also pop that in the email that we send out with the recording. So I'd love to hear your questions. You can pop them in the chat box. We've got a couple of minutes to go. Use the next few minutes to cover what's most important to you guys. Thanks for joining me today. I know payroll tax maybe isn't the most exciting topic, but it's one that can have very real consequences for your medical and health practices. If you'd like to talk further, all my contact details are there. And really, I hope to leave you today with clarity and confidence on your next steps. Let's see what questions there are. I will stop sharing, or I'll put this up. So if you'd like to join the Facebook group, you're welcome to do that. And I'll have a look at the questions that have come through. Dahlia asks, does that mean if we totally bulk bill, we will be exempt? Dahlia, I don't know your exact circumstances. It's worth looking at what I said about your state and having a chat with us or your accountant about that, just to confirm. Anonymous says, would your firm offer consulting SRO and confirm that agreements you? Yes, so we can get rulings from state revenue officers, and we've suggested that particularly to clients in certain states where we don't really know what the guidance is, and we don't trust that they are going to do everything that they say they're going to do in emails to us. So actually having a very clear, I'm looking for my chat, here it is, having a very clear answer and ruling will help protect you moving forward. Anonymous also says, what's the average cost for an agreement for a GP practice? We actually have fixed fee agreements, Anonymous, on our website. If you'd like to look under our fast track solution, there's a fixed fee for a fixed scope there. We find that we very, very rarely go over that fixed fee. The only reason we do is if there's a very lot of owners in a practice and they all want things done slightly differently. It's 12:30. If you need to go, please do. I've got some questions in the chat box that I will go through now. Peter says, will Victoria have so feel free to stay, or if you need to go, I understand. Peter says, will Victoria have an amnesty like other states have offered? I don't know. It's worth asking them. I'm not a fortune teller, but they haven't yet. So the general feeling on the ground is probably it's unlikely. Peter says, from Victoria, so I can understand this, bulk billed fees generated are exempt, but private fees is payroll tax applicable, or is it only if we have declared that we are 100% bulk billed clinic? Peter, it's worth getting advice on that as to how it works in your clinic. Kim, is patient flow relevant in Victoria? We are recommending the way of the funds flow be consistent actually around Australia, because if the money flows to practitioners directly, they're much less likely to be an employee because the money goes to them. So it may be excluded in some of the rulings, but we think some of them are incorrect and will be changed. So that's why we're recommending that. Peter asks, with the bulk billing exemption in Victoria, does that cover a mixed billing clinic? Peter, I would say get advice for your specific practice, just to make sure that you understand whether the bulk billing is not included and only the private fees have payroll tax applied to them. Peter says, is whether the doctor's majority of work in a practice a consideration? So that is a consideration for the employee contractor and sham contracting. So it is relevant, but it's more relevant for other considerations about whether employee contractor model is not a sham contract or not. How does the Uber ruling change things for GPs? I've seen David Darm, an accountant, extensively posting about this. I need to look into this, and maybe I'll even write my own article on it. Thanks, Melissa. Michael says, if your company is right on the threshold fringe where some months you are over and some months you are under, is the threshold worked out over the financial year or month to month? Michael, I'd get advice from your accountant on that, but it's the annual threshold off the top of my head. All right. Thank you, everyone. Oh, a couple more, and then I will wrap it up. I know. Oh, look, Anonymous, this is a very loving comment. Imagine stressing about $10,000 in legal fees when risk is six figures. Pay them. These guys are the best. That's a very nice thing to say. I would love to use that as a testimonial, Anonymous. All right. Durham Green, I think that's the name of your practice, not your name. Does the separate account receiving funds then transferring 100% to the GP the same as as direct to GP? Durham Green, I'd be getting advice on that for your state or territory. But having a trust account, as some practices call them, I think is a risky move in some states and territories. So definitely suggest getting advice. Thank you, everyone. I am just so happy to see you, and thanks for coping with my tech dramas. It won't happen again now that I've worked out how the screens work. I'll head off and let you get back into your day. And thanks, Kendall. Thanks for coming along. Nice to see you here. And yeah, look forward to catching up and being in touch about this soon. Have a great rest of the day.